Good evening, Jonesboro, and welcome to Shot Clock. I'm your host, Cody Dertow. I've got a great show in store for you this week, including soccer coach Tafadzwa Ziyenge, the return of Kurt Kamphausen to assist me in breaking down this weekend's ASU football game, and my take as to why the entire city of Jonesboro should be at the stadium for this weekend. All that's a little later, but right now, it's time to go around the clock. The sex abuse scandal swirling around Penn State and former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky grew larger than the college football itself over the last week, including the mysterious death Wednesday of the district attorney who was assigned to investigate the case. The issue escalated to the point that the university's Board of Trustees decided to fire longtime head coach Joe Paterno and university president Graham Spanier late Wednesday night after the board said the moral failure was not acceptable and was not in the best interest of the university. Much of the criticism surrounding Paterno has concerned his apparent failure to follow up on a report of a 2002 incident in which Sandusky allegedly sodomized a 10-year-old boy in the showers at the team's football complex. The eyewitness, Mike McCreary, is currently a receivers coach for Penn State, but was a graduate assistant at the time. McCreary told Paterno about the incident the next morning, and the coach notified the athletic director, Tim Curley, and vice president Glenn Schultz, who in turn notified Spanier. Curley and Schultz have been charged with perjury and failure to report the incident to authorities, as required by Pennsylvania state law. All three testified that they were told that Sandusky behaved inappropriately in that 2002 incident, but not to the extent of McCreary's graphic account to a state grand jury. The same grand jury decided the testimonies from Curley and Schultz, whose job at the time also gave him oversight of the campus police department, were not believable. Pennsylvania Attorney General Linda Kelly said Paterno was not a target of the investigation, although the state police commissioner has chastised him and other Penn State officials for not doing enough to try to stop the suspected abuse. Sandusky, 67, spent 3 decades on the Penn State staff before retiring in 1999, but continued to use school and athletic facilities, where prosecutors allege he molested several of the boys as recently as 2 weeks ago. He often held football camps for use on PSU satellite campuses and maintained an office at the Nittany Lions complex on the main campus. United States Representative Patrick Meehan of Pennsylvania said Tuesday he's asked Education Secretary Arne Duncan to look into whether the university violated the Clery Act, which requires schools to publish an annual report of all criminal offenses that are reported to campus security or local police. The allegations have rocked the campus of the university, where students have become split on the issue, some supporting Joe Pa, others calling for the punishment of everyone involved. This was further evidenced by the outbreak of riots around 11:30 Central Time Wednesday night on the State University campus, where students went as far as toppling a news van, reporting the damage at the campus at the time, and damaging other campus property as well. Police officers from surrounding counties and state troopers had to be sent in to deal with the issue. The story as a whole is arguably the most important one in the history of football, let alone the college game, and the task to find its rival perhaps insurmountable. It also permanently tarnishes the ultimate legacy of Paterno, a sports icon that suffers perhaps the greatest fall from grace in the history of any sport. And while the lasting effect remains to be seen, it is safe to assume Penn State will never be the same. On Tuesday, the NBA Players Association voted against a proposal from league owners and Commissioner David Stern that would have given the players between 49% and 52% of basketball-related income. The proposal, which was on the table until 5 p.m. Wednesday, was the latest in a string aimed at ending the 4-month lockout. But nothing was decided by the late Wednesday night deadlines, and players are instead requesting another meeting to draft a new proposal. The next one, according to reports at least, would feature a 53-47 revenue split in the owner's favor, along with a hard salary cap. The NBA is looking to limit the spending of teams above the league's luxury tax threshold, stating it believes greater competitive balance would be featured. Players say they want every team to be a possible destination for any individual free agent. Games have already been canceled through Christmas, and there could be worse news ahead. If the players decide they don't agree on the new proposal, the union is likely to decertify, which would take the issue to the legal courts. A fund for retired players has also been pitched, although this is likely to be on the back end of any new CBA. The two sides will continue to meet throughout the weekend, as concessions over system issues will be critical in completing a new deal. After the break, a certain guy I like to call Coach Z joins me to officially wrap up the soccer season. Stay tuned.
This is so cool, Dad. Awesome. This is so cool, Dad.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of siblings in foster care who'll take you just as you are.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home, where I belong.
It's always nice to come home, but many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Making home affordable from the U.S. government has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners like these. The sooner you act, the better chance we can help you.
I'm home, where I belong.
My name's Reggie. Just recently, my wife and I took in her sister's children. Now, we already had 4, so I went from becoming a family man to a man with a bigger family. Now, you can't eat love, so I don't know how I'm gonna feed them tonight. How was that, Rich?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold, man.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
ASU TV.
ASU TV.
ASU TV
ASU TV.
has provided me with a lot of real-life experience.
It's your station. You can be on it.
It's a way of life.
It's fun.
It's very exciting.
It's a purpose.
Bring cool shows straight to you.
Be creative.
Get you to watch, entertain you, the viewer.
ASU TV.
You should be watching.
You should be watching.
Watch it.
With me tonight is ASU head soccer coach Tafadzwa Ziyenge. Coach, you were in a few weeks ago, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to drop in again tonight. So, thanks as always for being on the show.
Appreciate that. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, Coach, let's go ahead and jump right into the issue. You guys wrapped up the season last week with the Sun Belt tournament, and dishearteningly enough, it ended at the hands of a loss to FIU. But, all things considered, it was a pretty strong season, at least by my account, for your program. A lot of positives were made. Do you feel this is the case? I mean, what's something that the team is just really shown some strength in over the course from last postseason to now?
Well, at the beginning of the season, we made it real clear to the girls that the conference portion of the season was the most important, and they understood it fully well. Now, we also wanted to have a winning season, which we didn't get, but the most important thing was for us to go to the conference playoffs, and we split our season into 2, non-conference and the regular conference season. And fortunately for us, we went on fire during the conference part of the season, which is the most important part. And so just to go to the playoffs was wonderful for this program. Great from the standpoint that that's what I wanted to do in my second year as head coach.
Right.
As you know, last year we didn't go, and it was really good. And not only did we go in, but we actually went in as the 7th seed and had a chance to go in as the 6th seed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to lead into my next question. Actually, we were going to talk about how the team didn't make it last season. So they made it in 2009. They missed the year, and now we're back. And as far as what you're trying to build program-wise here at ASU and recruiting tools for players coming out of high school, what does that mean to you as a coach, but even more so to the program as a whole regarding getting back to the tournament? I mean, how much of a factor does that play in making ASU soccer a real player on the national stage?
It means everything, because ultimately what we want to do is play with the big boys.
Right.
And in order for us to get to the big stage, we've got to consistently go to our big stage, the conference big stage. Ultimately, what we are building towards is winning the conference championship. And we can't do that if we don't go. And it's difficult to recruit quality players if we don't have a history
of success.
And of making it into the conference playoffs.
Well, you know, with FIU, like I mentioned, you guys met in the first round. You know, you've got teams. You're battling teams out of Florida and you know, out of Kentucky that are closer to these very central recruiting regions for soccer. And you know, I'm not sure as much as to where you guys hit for your recruiting base, but you know, being shut out 2-0 to FIU. I mean, do you feel it was more of strictly that, a shutout, or do you take any type of moral victory, away from that game whatsoever?
Well, my girls will be the first to tell you this, that we're very unlucky to lose. We played extremely well, and we just didn't finish our chances. Everything else that we did really well.
All right, you did outshoot FIU
yes,
shots on goal.
There's no question. It's one of those days where we just got unlucky. You know, they are a renowned powerhouse, and what happens is when you don't finish your chances against a powerhouse like that, you get punished.
Right.
But you know, we had no reason to be ashamed or anything like that. We were disappointed because on the day we felt like we were definitely the better team.
All right, and I'm sure, I mean, when I looked at the stats, those of which I don't have with me at this moment, but, you know, the shots on goal, the penalties, the corner kicks, I mean, you guys dominated in every statistical category. And I know it was a real heartbreaker for me, at least, being a fan of soccer and you guys to watch that. But, you know, big improvement in your first 2 years, and I feel that. And part of that improvement, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago when you were here, was the leadership and play, most definitely in that respect, of Kara Nitty.
Yes.
And, you know, sadly enough, she's graduating this year, so the conference game there in the tournament against FIU was her final one as a Red Wolf. But, you know, Coach, everything that she did, finishing second on the career goals list here at ASU, the leadership she provided, you know, what's that going to be like to replace her in the locker room and on the field? Have you even thought about this yet?
You know, Kara is one of those players that you just can't replace. She brings something different. Players come and go. There'll always be recruits out there, but Kara is that special type of player that there may be somebody close to her. There may be somebody that's even better than her, but there will never be another Kara Nitty. Everybody looks at statistically how she finished second on the all-time leaders, goals scored. But Kara played a much tougher schedule than the person that's in the lead. That's one thing we need to keep in mind.
Right.
And Kara was double and triple teamed more often than any player that I saw.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, Kara was the big number, you know, on the film. She was the person that other teams game plan to stop, and I just hope that you guys can replace her. I mean, she was a big deal. Now, I mean, and you have a lot of people coming up, though, too. So
there's no question about it. Yeah, there's other younger players who are hungry. Hopefully, I know they learned a big lesson from her. I know she's one of those selfless people that was willing to share what she knew with the younger players. So we know that there'll be other people that will be ready to fill in those big shoes.
Well, Coach, you know, myself and the rest of the Red Wolf Nation will be watching that. You and the players filling those shoes and hopefully bringing home a couple Sun Belt Conference titles. But I want to thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much.
And as always, you got the supported shot clock behind you.
I appreciate it, my man. Thank you.
All right, guys, when we come back, Kurt Kamphausen is here to take on the task of helping me break down perhaps the biggest football game in Jonesboro in a quarter century. Don't go anywhere.
In the event of a car crash, 3 out of 4 kids are not as secure as they should be because their car seats are not used correctly. But the latch system makes it easier to get it right and to hold your kids tight. Anchor, tether, latch. Learn more at safercar.gov.
Hi, it's Elmo.
And I'm Secretary Kathleen Sebelius.
Elmo and Secretary Sibelius are here to tell you how to stay healthy this flu season.
First, you learn to sneeze into the bend of your arm like this.
Oh, very good. Always wash your hands really well.
And remember to have a plan in case your child is too sick for school, so someone can stay home with them until they get better.
Stay healthy, America.
All right, guys, we gotta be smarter about what we bite on, okay? I want everyone to go outside. We're gonna run Red Rover on 3.
What about you, Tony?
I'm gonna run around in circles, flatten my arms, and make engine noises like this.
When it comes to playing, we kids are the pros.
We're eating right, too.
We fuel up.
To play 60!
If your school doesn't have a program, be a leader. Start one.
Click today and join the movement.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Marks the biggest athletic event to hit Jonesboro in 25 years. And here to tackle the details with me is ASU TV sports producer Kurt Kamphausen. Kurt, just like Coach a few moments ago, you've been here a couple weeks now. So you know, again, thank you as well for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with me this evening.
No problem. It's going to be fun.
You know, and let's get right to the heart of the matter because this is a big deal for Jonesboro and ASU sports. Biggest game in 25 years since 1986. ASU's got a chance to win the conference, get into a major bowl game, and possibly, ladies and gentlemen, a top 25 AP BCS ranking. You know, so Kurt, let's start breaking it down. Simply, what does ASU need to do to win this game?
All they need to do, and looking at all the stats from the Sun Belt Conference, really the main thing they need to do is stop the quarterback of Louisiana Lafayette. That's Blaine Gaudier. He has 17 touchdowns, but only 2 interceptions. I think this will be a major challenge for the defense in this regard. And Louisiana Lafayette, like ASU, they're both scoring over 30 points per game. The biggest difference, though, is ASU is only allowing 19 points per game, while Lafayette gives up about 28. So I think Applin and the offense will be doing quite well, but they just need to keep their eye on the quarterback, who does not turn the ball over for Lafayette.
Well, you know, Kurt, you mentioned that in ASU and Louisiana Lafayette basically battle 1 and 2 for every major statistical category in the conference. You know, interceptions, defensive points per game, yardage given up, offensive points per game. You know, is there any other statistic that just really sticks out to you that ASU can really look to take advantage of?
You know, I think the main one, the only one I can think of is Lafayette is ranked 7th in pass defense, while Applin is leading the team to a top 2 finish so far in the Sun Belt. I think he's either they're first in passing offense. So I think Applin will have a really good game. And also, Lafayette's rushing defense is mediocre. I mean, they're 5th in the conference, but they're allowing about 140 rushing yards per game. ASU averages over 160. So I think Applin and the offense will have their way, and I think Dwayne Frampton will be especially set to have a great game, even though they have a couple great wide receivers themselves. But I think Applin and the offense will have a particularly good game.
Well, you mentioned those statistics. I mean, do you figure ASU to have more of a rushing offensive philosophy in this game for that? I mean, because if you averaging that 160 compared to that 140, and the strong offensive passing to the strong defensive pass defense, you know, to me, normally they say defense wins championships, and we're getting into the colder months now, colder weeks, especially here in Jonesboro. Do you see ASU breaking out those 4 running backs we have on the roster that play sparingly throughout the game as a whole?
Here's why. Obviously, Frankie Jackson has had some ankle issues. He was kind of kept back last week, didn't play too much. The coaches had Derek Lawson run, which he had 20 carries for 91 yards. He had a especially good game. I think most of the rushing will come from Applin, like it did a couple of weeks ago when he had 140 rushing yards. And even last week, he had 4 rushing touchdowns. He has more rushing touchdowns than any of Lafayette's running backs. He has 7, and Lafayette's running backs have 6. I mean, Ryan is having a great rushing year. I mean,
Ryan's the third to score every time he touches the ball, throwing it to a receiver or running it in.
Absolutely.
himself.
He's top 10 in rushing. I mean, he's got more rushing yards than any other running back on the roster so far. So I see Applin having a good passing game, but I can see him having a good rushing game. But I also see Derek Lawson carrying over that great performance from last week. I mean, this guy, he keeps pushing forward. He doesn't get negative yardage. Derek Lawson, he's a physical running back, but he's also a guy that doesn't just run into piles so he can get knocked back. He knows where the creases are, he knows where the holes are, and he knows how to get a good 4 or 5 yard carry.
All right, and that's what you need. You need consistent offensive production, because as you keep moving the chains, eventually, where do you end up? The end zone.
Absolutely, and both teams are tops in the conference also in red zone production as well.
Right, so it's going to be a big defensive battle, and, you know, as we'll probably see Saturday, defense might win the championship. And
I should also mention just one more thing before we wrap up the segment. Brandon Joyner has at least half a sack in 11 of the previous 14 games. He had a full sack last week as well. He has 6 on the season, which is good for second in the conference. Look for Joyner to have another great defensive game.
Joyner's a man playing amongst boys.
Indeed, he is.
We know, Kurt, you reference all those statistics there, but there's one, ladies and gentlemen, that just really jumps off the page at me. And, you know, numbers don't lie. And here's why. The Raging Cajuns have been a strong team, like we've been mentioning, but in the first quarter, they've been outscored by 15 points on the season. But in the second quarter, they've outscored their opponents 116 to 55, perhaps making a statement that the team prefers to set up their offense in the first and use this lull effect to explode in the second. If you look at ULL's quarters on the season, no other quarter, third or fourth, sees this much of a difference. In fact, that fourth quarter, in which many games are decided, charts an even 89 points for the Cajuns and their opponents. Compare this to ASU. The Red Wolves have outscored their opponents in every quarter on the season, with the largest margin coming in the fourth, 88 to 31. ASU's other 3 quarters are more competitive, but this simple statistic tells me that fans should expect the first half to be a battle for dominance, but should feel secure in Hugh Freeze's ability to formulate a game plan to seal the victory. You know, Kurt, I don't know if before the show you got to check that statistic out for yourself, but, you know, with a split like that, especially in my mind, the 88 to 31 in the fourth, what do you feel? I mean, do you see the game even approaching the fourth quarter being a slugfest knockdown with one score or key defensive play making the difference there?
Well, I think of a couple games for ASU. I think of the FIU game in which it was tied 6-6 at halftime, and the Red Wolves just ran away within the second half. The other game I think of is the other Florida team we just played last Saturday, FAU, and granted FAU is 0-8 on the season, not very good overall, but they had a strong second quarter against the Red Wolves. We outscored them 15-0 in the first. They outscored us 14-3 in the second. For reasons not yet known by myself, I don't know how our defense went from holding them to negative 8 yards to allowing 14 points. But in the second half, the Red Wolves came out, and in the third and fourth quarter, they blew away the Owls of FAU. So I can see Lafayette hanging tight. I see this as a close game overall with how good both offenses are. But the big difference is that defense for both teams and us allowing 8 fewer points than they do. And so I think in the end, in the fourth quarter is when the Red Wolves will run away, like you said, 88 to 31 margin.
Well, I know that we both hope, and hopefully all of you there at home hope that that segment, or excuse me, that prediction holds to be true. Kurt, real quick before we wrap up, give me a final score prediction.
I think the Red Wolves will win 36-31.
36-31. I'm going to say we're going to see a 27-21 game myself, scoring, taking a little bit of a hit with the strong defenses. But Kurt, you know, thanks for coming in tonight, man. Always a pleasure. Man's always got the statistics on hand, knows what he's talking about.
We got it. Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, anytime. All right, everybody, stay tuned, because after the break, I've got a message that some in Northeast Arkansas need to take to heart.
Journalism is the first rough draft of history.
Journalism
is in fact history on the run.
Journalism is organized gossip.
Journalists are like dogs.
Whenever anything moves, they begin to bark.
A herald is an official messenger being named.
A person's views
as a sign that something is about to happen.
A good newspaper
talking to itself.
My name is Sarah.
Jared.
Raven.
Sam.
Anna.
Trey.
Whitney.
Dula.
Molly. And I am the voice of the Herald.
We can all be energy savers. It's easy. Turn off lights. Use energy-saving light bulbs. And turn off electronics and appliances when not in use. Make a change and we can really fly. Learn more at energy.gov/kids.
Every student needs encouragement to finish high school. Go to boostup.org to give Reagan and the students in your community the boost they need to make it through.
We are different. Society should aspire to be more like us.
Be part of the first class. Get energized. Get outside.
Hold on, guys. It's gonna get bumpy.
And get moving. Experience the power of physical activity. Join the movement at actionheroalliance.com.
As we mentioned in the previous segment, ASU hosts Louisiana and Lafayette Saturday in the Sun Belt's most important game thus far this season, and easily the biggest game for the Red Wolves in 25 years. It's the battle for first place in the conference, with the driver's seat to a bold destination of choice in stake. And for ASU, let's remember that possible top 25 BCS ranking. So much hasn't been on the line in Jonesboro since Hattie Caraway decided to run for Congress. At 7-2, ASU has won more games already this year than in any season since 1986. With winnable games ahead on the schedule, the team could be headed to its first season-ending national ranking in the 21st century. As I walk around Jonesboro, campus, and places in between, I hear the excitement of fans and students leading up to the kickoffs. One can mistake the atmosphere for a playoff game in the NFL. Facebook statuses, tweets, retail sales, and box office promises fill our heads with visions of ASU Stadium packed beyond the definition of standing room only. But when game day arrives, the stands are no more filled than that of a large high school game. With almost every Red Wolf game being televised regionally or nationally, the expectations for those television crews coming in are to see a madhouse, quite unlike anything they've ever seen. Sadly enough, these people have been disappointed, and the reason is you, Jonesboro. Fans in this town have clamored and cried for a winner for quite some time, and for that exact reason, Steve Roberts was politely asked to resign, at the end of last year, with the reins being turned over to Hugh Freeze. Now, with the football team on the verge of history, the same fans that stood out with figurative outrage now sit comfortably at home during ESPN2 games from Jonesboro, earning the deserved title of fair weatherers. Not to be left out of the conversation is the urge for this town to compete with Fayetteville and the Razorbacks for football supremacy, collegiate atmosphere, and money and influence. To be blatantly honest, without extreme fan loyalty and support, this can never happen because the national TV games will go away as the networks see this as a dead area. The major recruits will go elsewhere, and never again will ASU have a coach with a movie-quality background. Our athletic department should not have to give away the moon, along with the kitchen sink, at a de facto championship game to attract a fan base. As far as I'm concerned, those of you that are anchored by this commentary were never really fans to begin with. If this hurts your emotion, then simply take a look in the mirror and decide whether you're a fan or a paper placeholder. Personally, I'm choosing to attend the game as usual, because once I say I support something, I keep my word. There's too many reasons to name now as to why all of you should attend, but basically, we owe it to the city, the players and coaches, and the love of football itself to be there. If nothing else persuades you, maybe this will. This is the only top 50 BCS matchup in the state this weekend, and remember, ASU could vault into the top 25 with a win. Who knows when history like this will lay itself at Northeast Arkansas's feet again, and because of that, please join us and let the entire football world hear you howl. That's all I have for you tonight, Jonesboro, but as always, thanks for tuning in and spending your evening with me. For all of us here at ASU TV, I'm Cody Dertow, and have a great weekend.